Hello everyone, welcome to Book Berserkers, the podcast where barbarians read books. I am Tibbs.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Keep the Barbarian.
So, what do we got this week? We are doing a book reading, I guess, a book club?
Discord book club, because with this whole coronavirus thing, we have to figure out something to do. Because gaming
exactly.
We played most of every video game we had.
Yeah, we've played literally every video game that exists, so we have to turn to literature like a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, devastating.
So, the book that we did this week was Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer. If you guys had to describe this book in one sentence, what would it be? Jonathan?
Book writer seriously misunderstands how code works.
Kiba?
Coding with bubblegum and a paperclip.
I would describe it as kid discovers real-life God mode and is still a screw-up. What is the book about? It is, it's about... Well, first of all, this seems to be targeted towards, I would say, young adults. I think, Kiba, you said you read this book before when you were a young adult, and that's why you wanted to visit it again.
I read it, surprisingly. I read it when I was going from Florida to Pennsylvania because I had nothing else to do. It was pretty much the only thing that kept me insane on the road trip.
I hear that. You need something to occupy your mind when you're on a really extended road trip like that.
I mean, to Florida is like, I think, 20-hour trip straight or more.
Probably got stuck in all the swamp, eh?
Central Florida, so it was...
You got stuck in all the shooting. Well, anyway, this is, you can tell from the cover, which I'll put up on the screen. This book was definitely intended for a young adult audience, but it's also, you can tell just from this cover, and you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover. And I'm not judging, I'm just saying, this book is clearly intended for people who have some sort of interest in 80s to 90s video game nostalgia and or programming. And the book is kind of about programming in a way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Who wants to go first, just talking about it?
Well, main character finds, when browsing through the internet, a abnormally large text document that actively updates in his text editor. It has a huge amount of content, searches his name in it, because why not? Finds it.
I must add, he finds it after the search took about 10 minutes, which implies that this is an extremely large file. Don't know how this whole thing loaded into his text editor at one go, but whatever.
Plot conveniences, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
But he's not. He sees his height, doesn't like it because he thinks he's too short. Increases it a little bit, saves it, goes to use the restroom, realizes he's taller, starts panicking. Ends up putting his height back, realizes he can edit other stuff, like his bank account balance.
Oh, I'll also say now, this kid's name is Martin. I don't remember his last name, but it's Martin. We get to hear it a lot. So to consolidate, what's happening here is that this kid discovered that the world is a simulation.
Yeah.
And this text file that he discovers controls probably all people and their statistics, possibly everything in its statistics, but for simplicity's sake, we notice it's people. It's really funny, I gotta mention that he was able to find his own name written in plain text. So, all those other languages out there in the world, wrong. They're the wrong language. The correct language is English. The correct alphabet is Latin.
Maybe it just goes by whoever language that the person searches up. Like, if you speak English, it goes by English search. If you speak Spanish, it will go in Spanish.
I get the impression that this file wasn't supposed to be found by the members of the simulation, we'll just say. But then again, this is an open-ended question in the context of the universe of this story is, who created this simulation and why? That's not answered here, and I think that's a good thing, because that's not the whole... I mean, it is the major contrivance to get the stupid plot of the story rolling. But we don't need to know who does it, or what the consequences are, or if the big they that created this file wanted it to be found, or modified, or what they do if they discover it was, and so on. It's a lot of real stupid that is necessary to make the plot work, because without this extreme contrivance, we can't have this story of him being a literal wizard.
Ends up making a few plans for if he gets caught using it. After discovering he can travel backwards in time, but not forwards beyond a point he's already been in naturally.
It does get confusing.
Yeah, he ends up quitting his job.
I don't remember how he quit his job, like if he dunked massively on his boss or something like that. I don't remember that part, but I do remember him quitting his job because he figured out how to just manipulate his bank account directly. About the go back in time thing, I gotta say this too. When he discovers he can go back in time by modifying the time on his character in the file, he first sees himself appear in the room for having already gone back in time. This is future him going back in time. And they both look at each other kind of like awestruck and dumbfounded. And then he decides to go back in time by manipulating the file. And then he becomes the person who pops in front of his other self in the past. And he still, even knowing that he's the person that has set this whole thing up, he still sits there and acts like an idiot. So it's just like, even though he knows this is imminent and he's about to be the person he was just confused at seeing, he
actually played a game against himself, a chess match.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was something about him interacting with himself more often. At that point, I'm just like, okay, can we get on with this? I don't remember those details, but I think you're right. I think he does like have a more extended conversation with past him, and now neither of them are virgins.
Oh no. He doesn't end up doing that anytime later, because he's like, oh yeah, I should probably have warned myself about this, but since I haven't already seen myself, that means I haven't, so I'm not going to do it, which kind of dumb reasoning.
I don't know about you guys, but I think that this character, Martin, is supposed to be some level of an author insert.
Yeah, it did kind of seem like that. Not exactly something I was fond of. The character they have as the main villain, it's so obvious that it's going to be the villain that I thought he was going to have like a plot twist or something, and was surprised when he didn't.
It wasn't as obvious to me. I guess maybe I'm not good at predicting these things.
Well, he ends up, I think it was within the first, 3 days, fucking up enough by adding money to his bank account so many times.
No, what messed him up was, it wasn't the adding money account, it was actually the purchasing stuff. Rapid purchasing.
Yeah, he went and bought a car. He bought a bunch of stuff, and then he went and bought a car.
Bought a whole bunch of stuff from IKEA. Bought himself a good computer.
He didn't add the money all at once. He added it over multiple goes, which is what tipped them off, because they modified it so many times. They normally wouldn't have investigated the amount that he transferred just because he did it over so many.
Like a week, buy yourself a car, next week buy yourself IKEA stuff, the next week buy yourself a computer. It was rapid.
Yeah, he was visited by a couple of FBI agents named Beavis and Butthead. I don't remember their actual names, but I think they both started with M, just like Martin, so that I couldn't quite keep them straight.
Yeah, that was kind of annoying.
But Martin's got a contingency plan.
He does.
I don't remember how he left that meeting with the FBI, but I do know he gets apprehended pretty badly later. And when I say badly, I mean he's like stereotypically dragged into the room, good cop, bad cop routine, like he's not getting out of this easy.
And he was able to get his phone, and he was able to warp to his house.
Oh yeah, so Jonathan was telling us about like the phone situation. Can you say more about that?
Oh yeah, he finds out he can...
we use FileZilla, right?
Yeah.
Imagine he has a program like FileZilla on his phone. That's how he accesses the file.
Yeah, well, he writes a program that reads it to it so he can do some preset things. It has it so it keeps the battery at 70% constantly.
He could just manipulate the battery level from the file.
But having a full battery might be suspicious. That's why he did 75.
Oh yeah, he's worried about tiny details being suspicious, and then adds like $800,000 to his bank account in 2 days.
He also can apparently set the location that it broadcasts its wireless signal from, and make it at a set point in time.
He sounds extremely competent as a coder to be able to do these very precise things.
But he's only supposed to have access to a properties file, and that's not something I would expect to be a property, and I don't know how Wi-Fi is supposed to be handled. Wireless connections in general, but having them from a single point in time would not work.
I'm assuming he's doing it so that he has the ability to broadcast it when he goes back in time, which, big spoiler alerts, he goes back in time to become the wizard.
Then he was able to get access to his phone. He teleport back to his house.
Yeah, he could do that. He could teleport. Go through time, teleport, bunch of stuff.
Got into his vehicle. Then he was able to warp to... When he was about to hit a tree, he teleported out of the car as it was moving. When your object's in motion, it stays in motion, right?
Yeah, so he tries to escape the second crackdown in his car, and then teleports out just in time for the car to wrap itself around a tree. And he's like, okay, they'll think I'm there. And that would have worked, except he was actually stood really close to it so that everybody saw him and started chasing him anyway, back to his house.
Run to his parents' house.
Yeah, back to his parents' house. So he could very lovingly drag his parents into all this. So he shows up, and the FBI is like, open up. They start pounding on the door, open up. And he's like, he says to his mom, he's like, remember, Mom, don't open the door. I love you. It's not true. And I could see this joke coming from a mile away. His mom was like, it's not true that you love me?
God.
Yeah, she's Latina, so this is the person reading the book this is the book on tape. This is the guy reading the book on tape trying to do the accent, but he always treated her as like extremely soft. He's like, it's not true that you love me? It's like that. It's like, come on, give it a little more pep, man. It's not true that you love me.
But anyway, after that, he went to his room. He actually discovered a book that says it was about the best place to go in medieval times.
Right, so he went to the house so he could have a failsafe to leave. Mm-hmm. And he grabbed a really crappy wizard outfit or something.
Old Halloween costume.
That's what it was. It was a Harry Potter costume. That's right. There's enough references to Harry. And full disclosure, I'm not a Harry Potter fan, so I found constant references to the characters in the story a bit annoying. It's like the one time was fine, but he kept making a point being like, I have to correct my mom who thinks this character is this other character. Like, shut up and just get on. We get it. You're a Harry Potter fan.
Mm-hmm.
I've read the Harry Potter books, and it was annoying.
Okay, Scott, are you satisfied? We know you like Harry Potter. But he grabs his Harry Potter costume. He grabs his phone, of course. He grabs his My Little Pony figurine in a jar, and he gets prepared to go back in time. It's right, Kibo's hitting on something. Like, he did his research into it. Was it a book or was it online? Either way,
he found a book that was on Amazon.
That's even better. He found a book describing what is considered to be the best time and location, a period of about 10 years in the medieval period to live.
He doesn't even read the book. He reads the description on Amazon and is like, well, that's good enough.
Oh, this is even better. He gets this from the description of the book.
Yeah, he didn't even do that while he was being chased.
He knew this ahead of time, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he didn't even bother to read the whole book. He just read the description.
Oh, we'll come back to that. That's even better. I forgot all the details about how he learned that. But so he goes back to the year something or other. It was like, do you remember what it was? It was like approximately 1200? 1420, something like that. In London. So he appears in London. His phone still works, probably from some contrivance. And now he's got to live his life back in time. A real dumb setup and an extremely stupid contrivance to make the plot work, but it wouldn't have worked otherwise, so we'll accept it for the sake of seeing where this goes. So he gets back in time into London, or the London area, and immediately gets picked up by some woman in a horse-drawn carriage, which I can't get a read on her, like if she's royalty. I expected her to be royalty, and she turned out not to be, but he's like, hey, could I get a lift? He goes, I'm a really powerful wizard, and she just seems like, her name is Gwen, by the way, this will come back. Gwen seems so unimpressed. Like, she's like, yeah, I can tell you're a wizard by how you're dressed. So I'm like, okay.
It's like, okay, this is not the first time I've seen a wizard.
Not just that, I'm just like, she seems so blasé about it.
He's like an insufferable twat the whole time, though.
Mm-hmm. No, he was just imagining them getting up in a tree and kissing and seeing the sunset. Or he might as well. This is real juvenile. None of that part didn't happen, but yeah, he did get a ride into town, and he got dropped off at a pub and bust in through the doors. Somebody want to describe what he does?
He goes full insufferable plot mode and demands a free meal.
He says, I'm the most powerful wizard. Whoever wants to challenge me.
Yeah, imagine you just bust through the doors and be like, I am the most powerful wizard. Everybody listen up. I'm super powerful. How do you think they took that?
And the bartender called Gertrude, a bustle-bound...
Oh, to clarify, when Kiba said the bartender called Gertrude, that doesn't mean that the bartender was named Gertrude. The bartender called upon a bodyguard named Gertrude, which is... a medieval giga-chadette.
Something like that.
She sounded like she weighed 2 tons, and she could probably...
It's like a Hans and Franz fusion.
She could probably bite chunks off of a horseshoe.
She was able to break an oak table in half.
If only she had teeth.
I think the guy who wrote it really wanted to have a strong, independent woman in there somewhere. And so he did it in the most unrealistic way possible.
But anyway...
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Then a suspicious character walked into the tavern.
Unimpressed bartender is just like, yeah, I don't care if you're a wizard. You can't just ask for free food and boarding. Or I'll have Gertrude here to stretch you out like a G-string.
And break you like the table.
The innkeeper turns around and is just like, hey, I'll call the other village wizard. Which Martin's like, oh yeah, some charlatan, some jackass. So they call him this guy named Philip. And Philip is like the real deal. By that I mean, like, you can tell that he's calm and he's collected. He's dressed up like a wizard as well, like a cliche, stereotypical wizard.
The hat, the staff.
Oh, hello, Martin. Show me your powers.
And he says,
What did Martin do?
I think he had some clear film in his pockets.
Yeah, he had, like, cling wrap.
No, worse than that. He says he'll conjure some magic shit, but he can't do it while people are watching, so he goes in the closet.
Oh, yeah, he went into the closet, had a quick wank.
Gertrude guided him.
Yeah. Stuffed him in there face first.
And he teleported back to the house, back to his home. Got some clear wrap from the kitchen.
Yeah, so from the perspective of the parents, he disappears into his room for a very short amount of time while the FBI is pounding on the door. And for a few events during this story, he'll return back to the house to get items. But every single time he like pokes his head out the door. So as far as his parents are concerned, he goes in there for like a few seconds and comes out and be like, "Where's my vibrator? It's under your pillow. Oh, thanks." Like, stuff like that. But yeah, he grabs some cling wrap. That's his magic trick.
After he gets back, he puts the clear wraps in his pockets.
Yeah, he's pulling that old trick. But he's like, "Look, magical transparent fabric. Woo, so cool."
I was like, "Wow, interesting." Philip, how about you come back to me at my place?
He's like, "Yeah, I'd like to see you make more of this." So this entire time, Martin's like, "All right, this guy is the old medieval wizard. He's just like, he's a charlatan. He just exists to trick people and just scam them. And he wants to scam me and try to steal my cling film for his own or something. Like, obviously, this guy's not going to know how to travel through time to obtain cling wrap. So I don't know what Martin was super worried about. I would have entertained him, but no." What did he do? What did Martin do?
He challenges him to a duel and basically calls him a charlatan.
Martin decided to activate his janky program he made.
Oh yeah, so he made this program that keeps him at a constant distance off the ground.
But it teleports him constantly.
But it updates every 10th of a second, so he'll hover in place, but he vibrates.
Imagine you're like on a seesaw, and you just keep on going upwards.
Imagine someone on the other end of the seesaw uses a jackhammer. Everybody's like mildly impressed. I'd be pretty impressed if I saw that, honestly. But
wow.
then Philip's like, "Ooh, pretty impressive, Martin. Now check this shit out." And he like hovers wholesale. He's like glowing. He produces a glowing orb. He does like pirouettes and whatever. I'm making some of this up, but not much. He managed just to toss an energy orb at Martin and chuck him across the woods.
A sonic boom air.
Yeah, he did some kind of a sonic boom. We did this in a series of listenings where we'd listen to this book on tape, and this was the end of the first segment. I'm thinking, this guy Philip is probably another guy from modern times who went back in time and found did the exact same thing Martin did, but has had more experience with it. I mean, that seed pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, it was fairly obvious.
I don't think the writer here is going to set up extremely convoluted surprise mysteries. So when we returned to listening together, Martin woke up, and Philip's like, "You made a huge ass out of yourself, Lamau. I'm on to you, buddy." And I thought this was going to be a thing where it would take a long time for Martin to figure this out, or for Philip to admit it. Like, Martin would think, "Oh, maybe he's actually magic," and then only to have the big reveal later on be like, "No, I found the file too." But pretty much straight away, as soon as Martin wakes up in Philip's bed, do they establish, "Yeah, no, I did the same exact thing you did." And this is where that thing we said about the Amazon book comes up again. Mm-hmm. Philip says "Oh, you read that same book, so." Philip has to have known about that same time period and location from that same book. Mm-hmm. So there's just massive coincidence. So this has to imply there are other people who decided to go to other time periods. I mean, what are the chances that everybody who discovered the file went to this same time and place? There have got to be other wizards scattered elsewhere, which is an interesting thought that I think did not occur to the author at all. But then Philip discloses, "Yeah, no, I've got a bunch of other friends. Mm-hmm. We're all wizards. We all did the same thing, but we came from different time periods." But Philip came from the 70s.
Early 80s.
80s? Late 70s, early 80s. So I don't even know if this book that he's talking about existed at that time, or, certainly there wasn't Amazon. So I find this to be a high coincidence that Martin found the information he needed from an Amazon summary, where Philip had to actually have gone to the library and read the book.
Who knows?
It doesn't matter, don't ask questions. But there are a bunch of other wizards, and this is where the main conflict of the book is established. Martin is told that he has to become an apprentice and pass an arbitrary wizard's examination that is overseen by all the other wizards that have come back in time. And if he passes, he gets to stay. But if he fails, what happens to him?
He'd be stripped naked, away from having the wizard powers, away from the show, and be hogtied.
And be made unable to interact with electronic devices
by a 10 feet radius.
Oh, wow, I forgot about that. Damn. So Kiba said the shell. I don't think this term has come up with here yet, but the shell is what they just generally refer to as whatever program can access the file of interest. So if you hear us say that, that's what that means. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they make it a point multiple times as Martin gets more and more nervous about his upcoming exam that if he fails, he's going to be hogtied naked and stripped of his powers and of his clothes.
Yeah.
Like, the author really wanted to emphasize that he'd be naked, you guys, in Hogtied. I don't know.
And don't forget, he can't be around electronics 10 feet radius around him.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty, too. I forgot that detail, but that's horrendous. That, he could just be like a supervillain at that point. He could do that on purpose and just destroy everybody's electronics, and what are they going to do? He can victimize as many people as he like.
Yeah.
Bank security, down the shitter.
They later reveal it's by making him have a really large magnetic field, which is like, oh, cool, it's not even supposed to destroy the electronics, just turn them off. It's just like, what is this wonderful thing?
Yeah, but it's going to destroy them.
I know, but
it's not just going to turn them off.
Oh yeah, it should destroy them, but they don't have it destroy them, because it just shuts off.
I think these people are master hackers who have been able to do that.
It's kind of like a temporary EMP or something like that, a light EMP.
They have someone at the very end of the book with that applied to them, and it only shuts off nearby electronics when he's around. It doesn't destroy them like you'd expect a really powerful magnetic field to do. It's like, no, regardless, like, if it's only that, there's this great thing called a analog mechanical keyboard that does not give a singular shit about you being magnetic, that you just connect with a very long cable, and what is this? You can suddenly interact with the electronics again, just from a distance.
As long as you're sitting relatively still, your changing electric field won't do anything to that cable.
Yeah, and you can even use a shielded cable.
Oh yeah, man, Faraday cages. You could just dress in tinfoil your entire life.
Yeah, you look like frickin' Alex Jones, but even worse off.
Turbo Alex Jones. Globalists are gonna shut off my computer!
Yeah.
But, okay, so Martin now has this added stress. This is the ticking timer. He's gotta study for this exam. He gets to meet some of the other wizards. I don't remember any of their names because they're all dumbasses. We learned very little about these people.
Yeah.
And the only one we actually do learn about in more detail than not is a guy named Jimmy. Who decided that he was going to call shotgun as soon as he went back in time and said that his name was Merlin. So now he is the legendary Merlin, which I think was a really, really funny move. Philip didn't take this up. Jimmy went ahead and did it. But unfortunately, Jimmy's kind of a tool. So he's just got a real attitude problem. He's a little bit of a sociopath, and he's just extreme egomaniac. But he is the legendary Merlin wizard that everybody knows about, so he's not an idiot. Jimmy is an acolyte of the king, and the king is kind of a dunce, and Jimmy just runs circles around him. He does everything, but he's not trying to overthrow the king, but he's definitely a lot more competent and powerful, and he can just conjure gold. He actually winds up conjuring a lot of gold, and I think he builds a part of a palace out of gold or something like...
They build the entire castle of Arthur out of it.
Yeah, they do something real opulent.
Or they coat everything with it.
It's real bad.
They also ban gold paint for whatever reason.
So Jimmy obviously has no taste.
He's like a new player Minecraft that wants to build all the buildings out of diamond blocks and gold.
Don't knock making a brothel out of diamond blocks. My brother nearly did that once. I mean, Brett delivered on the diamonds, he never built it.
He probably had the better idea at the last minute not to go through with it because that's an awful, terrible waste. We should also mention that Philip hates Jimmy, and possibly vice versa, and they make sure to say this again and again and again and again and again.
It's repeatedly.
We could have just made it that everybody hates Jimmy, but Philip, the only wizard we really interact with a lot, especially hates Jimmy. So what a coincidence, right? That Martin happens to be taken under the wing of Philip, the one person who is the most outspoken, anti-friend of Jimmy. But they won't shut up about this.
Yeah, it's actually kind of obnoxious.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about magic. So they have this system for magic where all the wizards work together on this shell and ensured that you can only perform spells if you say certain phrases and you're holding certain things in your hand, so that in principle anybody could do it, but only the wizards really understand how to do it, and it just makes life easier on everybody. So they
gotta have a staff. You gotta have your sleeves about 5 inches. You gotta have your hat on.
A bunch of bells and whistles. But because programming's a pain in the ass, so they essentially wrote a bunch of macros that can shortcut a ton of things. But the first time, and I don't remember what the purpose of this spell was, but Philip uttered this phrase: "Suprin, suprin, subin, subin, maldextra, dextra, maldextra, dextra, ba kamenko." And I had you pause the thing, because I'm like, I did not just hear what I thought I heard. I'm like, suprin and subin, I can consider to be up and down. Maldextra and dextra obviously mean left and right. Komenko could mean start. So I'm like, this is the contra code. did he just make up a fake wizard language just to put in the Contra code? And no, it turns out that almost.
The person that programmed the show did the whole Contra code. I think it was from the 90s.
The person who actually established the Contra code was somebody who teleported back from the 90s. Yeah, of course. So again, this is appealing to video game players, but what's the language? I called this fake wizard language. What's the actual language?
It's Esperanto, which is an actual language.
It is an actual language, but it is also a fake wizard language. Because, I mean, come on. If you want somebody to speak in a language that isn't Latin, but is kind of like Latin adjacent, but that nobody else can speak, so they won't know what you're saying, you do Esperanto. Mm-hmm. My wife, Beth, started learning a bit of Esperanto out of interest, and she joined an Esperanto speakers group, I think, on Twitter. Or she was invited, and their whole thing is finding other people who are learning Esperanto and talk about how cool it is to learn Esperanto. They don't, to my knowledge, actually communicate in it, but they're just like, they're wearing it as a status symbol, which I think is pretty funny.
When did she start doing that? After you talked about it?
No, she'd been doing it for a while. You know, bits and pieces of various languages, because that's what Duolingo is for.
It's on Duolingo, funny enough. It's on there, and Klingon, too.
Oh, yeah, no, you could do, like, Klingon and Quenya and all that other shit, so... If you do that and not Esperanto, I'd be really offended. Alright, so, spells are in Esperanto. You have to fulfill a bunch of other conditions to make them work. I don't know, Martin's just got to train for this wizard stupidity.
As he was training on all that stuff, he got his robe, he went to the local tailor, and we noticed that Gwen, we didn't touch on this, Gwen was the local tailor.
That's right, I was about to say. Gwen is this person who picked him up and gave him a ride into town. She is the local tailor. She's apparently well acquainted with the wizards, and especially Philip.
As Martin was going to the local tailor, to get his self-measured.
Get his rocks off.
There was a farmer there, surprisingly, that he had, for some reason, his sleeves were too long for his shirt. It's like he stretched his sleeves out.
Yeah, so she's been having this problem where everybody's just like, my stuff doesn't exactly fit anymore. That's a detail I didn't quite pick up on. I just thought these people are yokels, but that is important. Every time he interacts or thinks about Gwen, it seems like a forced kind of love interest where he's just like, I wonder if I could ask her out. And all the other wizards like, nah, man, I tried that. I'm a dork. And Philip is the only person who has a shot, and he never bothered because he's the only character in the story with any class.
Define class.
Well, he's not a complete tool like absolutely every other character out there. Everyone, point to any other character, they're annoying. Philip is the least annoying, I would say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He is kind of annoying at some parts. Like, when they're talking about the world being a simulation, he said something about just telling people to shut up if they bring it up. So the kid brings it up, and then of course he just yells, shut up, shut up, shut up.
Oh yeah, there's something that really annoyed me. I have that in my notes.
That's the whole concept of he doesn't want to think that everything is predetermined.
So, I should also mention this. When Philip had the first big reveal that, we're all programmers and you have to take an exam, and there's some point where Philip gave all this information to Martin and taught him how to do basic, like, death spells or something, like how to, like, injure people and do stuff or whatever. There's an awkward pause, and then Philip says, "You didn't try to kill me." I'm like, ugh, exhausting. So there was a point where Martin ran into a bunch of hooligans, and they try picking a fight, and then Martin just embarrasses them by, like, making himself hover, or making them hover, or just making them hit each other. I don't remember what he did, but he just, like, kind of completely outclassed them with his so-called magic. And that's when I got to thinking that this book is kind of like the author's power fantasy, where the bullies are always afraid of the geeks. Because, like, everybody's afraid of the wizards. For good reason. They've got literal supernatural powers. But it felt a little bit like a power fantasy at times.
They know how to access the JSON files.
Oh, God. We're screwed. Life over. The invalidation causes the world to end. Yep. One of the wizards... Oh, so they have a meeting where they actually all hang out as all wizards when Martin first meets them. And I took a note that one of the wizards is from the year 2021. And he said, "We've had some presidents you've never heard of." Oh, really?
This book was made back in 2016, remember?
Oh, really?
2016 or...
I know, they just had to pick something, yeah. But presidents you've never heard of in 2021. Okay, buddy. And then he says, when saying he doesn't want to say who the presidents are, he says, "It'll damage our friendships, it just leads to fights."
Oh.
So they got something right. during that same meeting, I should also mention they introduced the concept of telepooping.
Oh, yeah.
Where they teleport to their own abode and they like set up a vortex in your outhouse that teleports your poop somewhere. And I think there's one person who teleported all his poop to his apartment.
No, he legit goes to his apartment and poops there.
Oh, he goes to his apartment. Like, somebody just goes to his apartment and poops.
And he just has a stockpile of toilet paper and all that stuff is in his apartment.
Yeah, so there's another future predictor. Stockpile of toilet paper. Damn, dude. If only they predict the coronavirus, we'd be onto something.
There was one guy actually was teleported to his local Pizza Hut bathroom. Actually got pizza. Went to his bathroom, teleported out.
Disgusting. Disgusting. They're all gross.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but he got pizza.
One's chosen mode of defecation is largely up to one's comfort levels, I believe Philip said. Made me want to punch him. At some point, and I don't remember how or why, Martin returns back to his house. Again, the FBI is still pounding on his door. And he obtains an El Santo luchador figurine to put on the tip of his staff, because I guess you need some kind of effigy on your staff. I don't remember any. Like, why?
You need to be like 5 feet staff, and it needs to have a something on it.
Oh, it just had to have something on it. Mm-hmm. I would have put a Bad Dragon dildo up there, but that's just me. Wait, I think I just implied that I owned a Bad Dragon dildo. Can we cut that? Can we cut that out?
No.
Ah, shit.
And don't forget, Philip he has a bottle of Tabasco sauce on his staff.
Oh yeah, Philip has Tabasco sauce and he calls it Dragon's Blood.
He got caught eating food after having put it on it, and it ended up working out in his favor because people just thought he ate dragon blood.
It turns me on.
I didn't need to hear that.
So, not a lot happens.
No.
Martin's just preparing. He's learning how to do basic things. Like, they have a flight scene where he just eats shit completely by losing control. They also do have an exorcism scene.
They do. It's pretty interesting.
Some family's teenage son was part of the gang, I think, that went after Martin originally, but he's also, he was just acting up because he was a teenager, and that's just what they do. He's being rebellious. It wasn't anything special, so Philip and Martin went there and pretended they were doing an exorcism and make them all better, or some crap like that.
After everything's done, they decided to play a game of
grab ass.
And they did the whole thing just to make for the parents to leave the kid alone, for the kid to actually can just...
This Donald the rebellious teen was just like acting out, and it just makes me wonder if the author had probably had his personal space violated a lot when he was jerking off as a kid.
God.
I want to mention something else about Philip here. This is easily my least favorite line in this whole story. So Philip does his programming on a Commodore 64, I think, or something like that.
A Commodore 64.
Something from that era. Something pretty old. An old computer that you'd expect from the 70s or 80s. And he prefers it because he's used to it. And Martin, of course, has his modern, as of 2016 anyway, smartphone that has a world of capabilities. And Martin at some point was describing these capabilities to Philip, and Philip shouldn't be surprised, but the exponential upturn in complexity of electronics. And Philip says the stupidest line in the whole story, after learning about how powerful phones are and how ubiquitous they are, he says, "I kind of hate you right now." That was very clearly a mid-2000s millennial humor style there. I hated it so much. This is not something somebody from the 1970s or 80s would say. "I kind of hate you right now, please."
You gotta remember this. Philip does hang with people from different time periods from the 2000s.
He would always present himself as a cut above the rest and classier. To use that kind of, stupid phraseology, it was so uncharacteristic of him. It was like the author wanted to insert a timely sort of also random comeback, that kind of angsty millennial style comeback. I really hated it. It took me out of the story about coding wizards in the medieval period. So eventually the day comes where Martin has to prove himself as a wizard and take his exam, stressing out about it all this time.
I mean, he's more stressed in doing a
split on a rail spike.
For my situation was actually getting my diploma. You want to make sure you look good in front of everybody, but at the same time, you don't want to make it look stupid because you only one time go. If you mess up, you mess up.
But on the other hand, if you didn't get your diploma, you wouldn't have been stripped naked on stage and then kicked out into the street and covered with oil in a very sexy manner.
True.
But I think the ceremony was conducted at Merlin's castle. And this is tradition, all the wizards show up to Merlin's castle, and I also took a note here that there were guards at Merlin's castle.
One wizard was missing.
The guards at Merlin's castle were not as powerful as the wizards, but they still had the authority to keep the wizards out until Jimmy gave them explicit permission to allow the wizards in. And somebody said, therefore, by the transitive property of dominance, to talk about power dynamics in this specific situation. And I'm like, give me a break. this author needs to just dial it down a little bit. But so they have the wizard exam. Hold on, I screwed up. They didn't have the exam. They had like the ceremonial eat and drink the night before the exam. So I'm sorry. So they got together specifically so they could all have one final gigantic dinner banquet to celebrate
Party and all that.
Martin. Yeah, party. They all the wizards get. I mean, the wizards clearly most of them just stopped caring about Martin moments after he was introduced and said his hellos, and they just went on and did their own conversations, which was fine. But they had this big elaborate dinner, and it's tradition that the wizard who's up for exam has to put on some stupid performance and show off some cool thing that he put together just to impress everybody. He's the entertainment for the night. He just has his moment in the spotlight. And everybody gets all drunk, which I thought was a bad move because you've got to take your exam tomorrow. You don't want to have a massive hangover, which I think he winds up having. But he does something really crazy. He just his simulation has him. I don't remember all the stuff he did, but I think he might have pulled something out of his hat.
Pulled something out of his hat. It was a small box that actually had his cell phone in it, and he actually made a micro to duplicate the boxes because it was a perfect size. It was actually
oh yeah, there are rules about what you can duplicate using the macro.
And it was copied, and he was able to make a giant, like a humongous giant out of the boxes.
Yeah, he made a statue of himself out of duplications of his box that contained his cell phone, and he was like striking poses. And I think he did an actual breakdance.
He actually breakdanced, yeah.
Oh, I actually have here in my notes. Martin made a statue of himself that danced the robot, then a head spin, then a back spin, then the cliche side lying. Is Martin a Gary Stew?
That was one of the most cringe things in the book.
And everybody was cheering. Everybody.
Yeah, apparently this was his Mary Sue moment because nobody had seen a performance quite that good, so everybody was losing their minds, they're all getting drunk, and it was a great time. And then I think in private, afterwards, Merlin comes up and he's like, hey man, that was some sick shit out there. I've never seen anybody who has the raw talent and ability you do, Mary. Would you like to be my acolyte so that you can help me out here? And Martin's like, I don't know, I'll think about it. And obviously, Philip wouldn't be too thrilled about this because Philip hates Jimmy. Remember, Philip hates Jimmy.
Yeah.
But okay, so what happens? The next morning, he's got a bit of a hangover. Was this also the morning where Martin saw the apparition hovering over Philip?
Yeah.
He saw some, like
a weird ghost or something.
And this was actually a very well-described scene in the book. When Martin just woke up, the dust motes that you'd see in the morning sunlight coming through the window, just hovering in air, there was an evacuation of them in the perfect shape of a person, just hovering over Philip, which was really eerie. Now, the stupid part is that Martin didn't bother to say anything to Philip and report this to anybody else, even though that's clearly very important. But, alright, this is the morning of the exam. Who wants to describe how his exam went?
There was literally no exam.
What do you mean, Jonathan?
They just sat there and stared at him.
Tell me more. Can you elaborate on that, Jonathan?
It was from whatever stunt he did was enough to make him pass.
They basically just wanted to make him feel really awkward, and you're like, oh, well, there's actually nothing.
Yeah, the performance at dinner was the exam, and he definitely proved beyond the average that he was competent, so they're like, yeah, you're cool.
You know, that is like the best time to do exam is when you're not stressed.
When you don't know you're doing it. So that was a big load off. He passed the exam with flying colors, with flying, whirling boxes. And he's allowed to stay and be a wizard with the rest of them as long as he liked, because the penalty would have been to get stripped naked and sent back to his time where he'd get arrested. We forgot to bring this rule up before, but now that Martin has passed, we should say that the wizards have agreed to a very small but important core set of rules of things that they shall never do, and that involved changing human body shapes, even your own, and some other things. But at core, you can't go, like, messing with people. That's just cruel and weird. You can't mess with animals or something. You can't modify people. And I don't remember all the other details, but that's a pretty important one, obviously. And this guy whose name I don't remember violated that, and they kicked him out naked and hogtied. I'm going to say it just like they said it. He was naked and hogtied and covered in oil. Mm-hmm. Mineral oil. Mm.
The person, Todd, I think it was named Todd, he was able to figure out a way to make it have a perfect body temperature, like perfect 75 degrees all the time, you know?
Okay.
But you can actually make it so you don't need to breathe or eat.
Oh yeah, that was the thing. You could do several of those at once, and it was called ghosting, and they couldn't interact with people, and they felt like they were starving and suffocating it all at the same time or some shit like that.
Oh, damn. That's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Well, that was the big climax. There is no exam. Martin passed. He did a fine job. So that was the big conflict out of the way, and that's the end of the story, right? So what'd you think of Off to Be the Wizard? Because nothing else happened.
There's still more tips. There's still more.
Oh, there's more?
Mm-hmm.
Really? I did notice this in our recording, that we weren't anywhere near the end when all this happened. So I'm like, there's going to be some more conflict about to go on. And indeed there was. Who wants to take this?
They're off doing some random shit, and they stumble across a town filled with a bunch of dead people that have oversized feet.
Everybody found a town full of dead people with giant feet, which is weird. 2 weird things have happened here. I don't remember if those wizards who discovered this were suspected immediately, or if they tried to get together and figure out who did this.
At the process, as they went back to detect the town, their staffs were taken away from them.
Oh yeah, they got ambushed
by the brutes.
Yeah, because some dumbass, when he was
Martin
bullying them the first time, decided to tell them, "Ha, you can't hurt me while I have my staff."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Martin told them that.
Martin made it a point, you cannot harm me when I have my staff, because Martin's a genius.
And they were captured, they were tied up.
So they're on the scene of the crime, and those hoodlums from before, including the emo son that they did the exorcism on, captured the wizards, took their staves, made it a point to take their staves because Martin blabbed about the power being, staff being required for their powers. And they were up shit creek for a little bit there. They also had Gwen, so, Gwen was with them, so they had Gwen, and they were like threatening Gwen, you better tell us how...
Gwen wasn't tied up or nothing.
Yeah, you better admit to us how you killed all these villagers, or else I'm gonna do something bad to Gwen. And just as they go to do something bad to Gwen has magic powers and she acts like a wizard or something.
Let me
like
tell
that.
You what happened.
Okay.
Gwen actually got her measuring stick, right? Broke it in half, and extended her sleeves, and actually made her measuring stick into a staff. And since she popped the hood, and her hood, she actually had a hat. So the process of her unleashing the sleeves, she actually activated the shell to activate for her.
Yeah, I think she might operate on wand rules rather than staff rules, and so the trick was she took her measuring stick from being a tailor and snapped it to wand length. So, turns out, surprise, Gwen was a wizard all along, which is partially why she was so unimpressed at Martin when he first showed up. But that one I was just like, alright, that's cool enough. So
she did some powerful stuff. She was able to pick him up, the big thug.
Gwen bails them out. She manages to subdue all the baddies. They go off and confront Philip and ask him if he did it, even though nobody wanted to believe it. And because Philip keeps disappearing into a study that he's not allowing anybody to go into. But it turns out it's just because he wants to, what I have written down here. He was building a 70s Pontiac piece by piece that he teleported in from his time and reassembling it. And he was also putting together a man cave with an arcade machine. So there that was. They established that he goes up into a secret study a few times. I didn't think anything of it. So the only person really left that could have done all this crap was Jimmy. Jimmy the Merlin the Wizard. So they make it a point to, go confront Jimmy.
They call literally every other wizard that they know of to a meeting.
Yeah. So if they got it wrong, if it was someone who wasn't Jimmy, they'd be in deep dookie.
While they were confronting the one guy, they realized that the guy that hadn't showed up for his, test thing had been ghosted the whole time, and that's why he saw, the invisible-looking dude. Yeah, that's how they know it was Jimmy, specifically.
Yeah, that's right. So eventually a meeting was called with everybody but Jimmy because they discovered, to re-summarize, they discovered the wizard that didn't show up for the exam was ghosted, as you described it. Somebody had to put him under a ghost condition, and it turns out that Jimmy did it because Jimmy wanted to make hobbits out of townsfolk because he wanted to turn all of England into literal Lord of the Rings land.
Middle-earth,
and the one wizard he showed it off to was like, I don't know about this, Jimmy, so Jimmy punished him by turning him into a ghost.
You could have seen me, Martin. I was looking right at you, and he did nothing. He legit looked at Martin when he was looking for that dust.
Well, I wouldn't know what to do. I maybe hungover, maybe I was just seeing stuff. I wouldn't worry about it.
It was making a whole bunch of moans and cries.
Well, I do that every night.
Everybody thought it was a dog.
I have here in my notes, Jimmy Kill World. Alright, so the final confrontation is that all the wizards call a meeting with Jimmy and then call him out for being a massive tool and saying, you're not allowed to do this, dude. It's not cool. It's not cool at all. Jimmy's like, I thought you would like a more interesting medieval England. And Jimmy's like, okay, I guess I lose. Come and get me. But it turns out that it was a trap. He had managed to set up some kind of a barrier that...
They all touched Jimmy. They all teleported outside of the kingdom. They actually went into a zone where they couldn't use the shell at all.
Yeah, they were teleported into a region where they can no longer use magic.
No, they can still use magic, but they can't use the shell.
Literally every last one of them was stupid enough to trust him after he killed an entire village.
Yeah, so he banished them to a no-shell access zone, which seems like it's a you can't use magic zone, but that's not quite true, you guys, right?
They were able to use their phones, their devices.
Yeah, Jimmy forgot that the shell is not everything. The shell is just a convenience, but having direct access to the file, which Martin does, was not forbidden. Boy, yeah, that just reminds me. So Martin has this cool jitter hover in place and throw up everywhere ability. And I think they pushed him along like a big meat balloon.
And actually, Philip actually jumped on his back and treating Martin like a skateboard.
Philip was actually riding on Martin when he was in hover puke mode. I guess when Jimmy discovered what was happening, he gathered all of his orcs that he created to try to defend the kingdom, but one of the wizards created Doom monsters, like Barons of Hell.
Yep.
Summoned a bunch of Barons of Hell sprites that all walked stupid and didn't actually do damage, but were enough to scare the hell out of the orcs. It was obvious what was happening when they were describing it. Doom? Somebody actually said, "You use Doom monsters, huh?"
And they all had the billboard effect. If you look, no matter what direction you look, they still look at you.
Exactly like a billboard. It was the cardboard cutout effect. Oh, my notes say Jimmy put Camelot into an exclusion zone and tried making life into Tolkien. Okay.
Oh, and in the process of it, Philip was able to get back to his house, right?
Yeah.
Philip got his, his little computer, got some stuff set up. Martin was able to teleport back there with his phone, with Jimmy to fight Jimmy.
Yeah.
Remember that whole teleporting poop scenario you speak about earlier?
Yeah, about this poop teleportation. Well, turns out that Philip had done something where they had gone to visit the Grand Jimmy Palace. Apparently there's a giant Merlin statue, and Philip hates Jimmy so much. Remember, everybody, Philip hates him so much that he decided to hook up his toilet to the tip of Merlin's hat. So, it'd be raining poop constantly. And, Jimmy spun it into a miracle like the statue of the Virgin Mary crying blood. But instead it's a golden statue of Merlin pooping out of his hat.
What he did was...
They used this teleport.
And Philip was able to teleport for the poop shoot.
Teleport one.
They used the shitter to teleport into the palace. I didn't actually think that this stupid plot point would be pertinent. But this is how everybody else gets into the castle.
They'd already gotten out of the exclusion zone, and they still used that method to get there instead of directly teleporting like they knew how to.
Yeah, well, programming is shit.
They was able to teleport everybody to there, but they had to do everything manually.
I just remember the final battle.
Yeah, the final battle happened.
Martin uses the macro that pulls out giant wizard-looking...
Of himself.
The box wizard version of himself. Only the hands and feet, and I think staff have collision along with himself. Jimmy had copied it and made it use electric spheres.
And improved.
And made it bigger.
So it was two giant box robots.
I don't know
box
if that's
robot wizards, right?
I wouldn't call being bigger an improvement, necessarily, but he does that. He has a stupid glide step thing he uses to move around, so he's able to maneuver it easier.
Am I wrong in saying this is a giant box wizard robot battle?
Yeah.
It's like the freaking Smack 'em or Rock'em Sock'em robots, but more retarded, I think.
I would have gone with that, yeah. Rock'em Sock'em sounds great. That would have been perfect to tie this thing up at the 70s, 80s motif that they were going for.
Everything was going crazy.
So epic that we don't actually remember any of the details besides glide step.
As Philip was going for the poop shoot, he was able to get his Tabasco sauce in Jimmy's face.
Nice. Not the dragon's blood. Ugh.
And because how hot it was, remember, it was in a bottle fermenting in that bottle for about 10 years.
That's got to be pretty rancid.
And it was in Jimmy's eyes. And since Jimmy lost concentration, the whole ball went splat. He couldn't control it. And
so I'm sure you, the listener, are hearing this and you're imagining this epic climactic battle and thinking about which Hollywood studio would be responsible for producing this trash if they were to make it into an actual movie. Just trust me that your imagination will do a better job than the movie.
Yeah.
Just imagine.
Look at Ready Player One.
This has to be more entertaining than that crap on screen. So that was it. They apprehend Jimmy, right?
And after they did all that stuff...
So what do? They hog tie him, they strip him down, they slap him on the butt, they give him a kiss.
They did all that, then they put football colors on him of the opposite team.
Oh, I thought you said they put a football on his ass.
And ship him to Brazil.
What did they do? They dressed him up in the football colors of, was it Argentina?
Argentina, I think it was, and ship him to Brazil.
And then they sent him to Brazil so he get his ass kicked.
Yep.
During football season,
like the 70s or 80s or something, they sent him that specific time period.
Somewhere where they were doing a big football season during his time.
But it was many decades before the present day, right?
Yeah.
This is like some type of psychopath that you'd want to put down at that, not one you'd want released back into the wild.
They should have sent him directly to the capital of Brazil, where he could have immediately gotten shot and stabbed and mugged.
And they took his access to the shell, so anything about, I think, 10 to 20 feet around him will have a mini EMP power shut off.
Oh yeah, they gave him the EMP field too.
Martin actually went back. After all that, Martin and Gwen talked. Gwen kissed Martin.
Did they? I thought they failed.
They failed because her He's like, do you mind if I get a kiss? She said no. No was her keyword, or like activation word for her like fancy spell macro, and it just launched him back.
No was the activation word?
Yep.
I missed that detail. That's an extremely stupid contrivance. Why would you use the most common word, one of the most common words out there, to be an activation for like an attack spell?
Just in case somebody tried to kiss her.
What if you set the letter E on your keyboard to be a hotkey?
It was because she would have to have a wand on her and have ripped her robe or her cloak into the wizard robes, and that she hadn't changed it after having used it in an emergency.
Alright, fair enough. Still, no. Like, I wouldn't have picked no. I guess if you do it just right, it would seem pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. After that, he decided to go back home. He went back to his present time. The FBI found him in the house. He went to his room, and he was gone.
Martin was gone.
So the FBI left. After about like 10 minutes, Martin was out the door, shaved, in a suit, and he told his parents, well, whatever they said to you was a lie, and everything is good. I'll be moving. I won't be returning for a few years.
So, his parents have just been put through miniature hell in like a half a day. But screw them, right? They're just ancillary to the major plot.
And during all this, as he was leaving his house, there was a guy that was on his bike that had notebooks that had Brazil, Spanish in them.
Spanish and Portuguese.
And he was riding a bike, and his age was about like 50 years old.
He just happens to go by a vehicle with a modern engine in it, and it just happens to briefly shut down as he goes past.
Yeah, because we need to know.
It doesn't fry the engine, no, it just turns it off briefly, that's all.
So you guys have a guess who this mysterious character is?
I totally don't, because they never mentioned a name. It couldn't be...
Yeah, well, who do you think it is, smart guy? Come on, Kiba, who is it?
It couldn't be Jimmy.
Well, it could be two candidates.
Uh-huh.
It could be Tom or Jimmy.
The guy, I don't even remember his name, but first of all, I gotta press you on that. Why would it be Tom or Todd or whatever?
I don't know.
Do we know that he was sent to Brazil?
No. He just had the power of that, same as the guy on the bike.
Todd also wouldn't know who...
He wouldn't know who Martin is either. Anyway,
True.
I think it's pretty obvious that the answer is that it's Gwen.
And the person was about 50 years old, and Jimmy was 30.
So, I was surprised to find out after this that apparently this was the beginning of a series of books. I cannot believe that he had the gall to continue the story, but there are more.
There are more.
And we're going to opt to listen to a different book next time, not necessarily the follow-up to this. I suppose maybe if we get really desperate or curious, maybe, but...
yeah, we get curious.
I think that story was well enough self-contained, unless it gets, like, super violent in the next one. I don't know.
I don't want to spoil nothing for the next book.
Okay.
Is there increased levels of violence, though?
You'd be surprised what's happening. I won't sound
Okay, alright, a non-answer, I see. Alright, guys, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Jonathan, would you recommend this book?
No. No, I wouldn't.
Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer. You wouldn't?
No. If you're desperate for reading material, but, like, there's so much other material out there.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, I think the summary we gave of it was...
I suppose if you've listened to this entire thing, we've covered all the important plot points.
Yeah, add extra words and you have the book with slightly less entertaining language.
Yeah, take what we've said here, make it like 10 times as long, a little bit less entertaining.
Also PG-13.
And more annoying, if you can believe it. Kiba, would you recommend Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer?
Actually, yes.
I mean, you were the one who recommended it to us, so yes.
If you're actually a fan of pulp culture, 80s and 90s references, and just like to listen to a book just for something that's off the beaten path, something that's interesting, something that's odd. Nothing like serious as Lord of the Rings, or as comic or crazy as Harry Potter.
Right, fair enough. Well, I guess I'm the tiebreaker, huh? I think I generally wouldn't recommend this book unless you're a specific demographic. If you're maybe young adult or, early 20s and you're into 80s nostalgia references like Kiba said, and you have some interest in programming, because it doesn't get super technical to the point that it's obnoxious, but if you don't know anything about programming, it's just going to sound like wasted space. So I can't categorically not recommend this, but in general, I'm more with Jonathan on this, but if you are on a drive from Florida to Pennsylvania, it's better than listening to either nothing or the local radio. Well, that's it, folks. This has been the inaugural episode of Book Berserkers. See you next time.
Okay, see you, everybody.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.